Well, again, it's the OhioRAAM Show coming to you from Southwest Ohio. This is a show about cycling, ultracycling, and the race across America. And speaking of the race across America, the show is sponsored by the first two time stations in Ohio, time stations 41 at Oxford, Ohio, and time station 42 at Blanchester. We'll be saying a lot more about those as the show goes along, because this is a very special show. It is the third anniversary of the OhioRAAM Show. We'll be talking a little more later on about how the show got started and how it got its name. But I want to just say hello. My name is Lee Kreider. I host the show. Actually, I find in my YouTube account videos going back to 2007, and that's back when the route for Race Across America went north of Dayton and the time station at Troy, Ohio. But the show didn't start till June of 2012. And our guest at that time was John and Amy McFadden, who are the captains of the wonderful time station at Blanchester, Ohio. Anybody who's been around the race across America any length of time know John and Amy, and they know the wonderful job they do there. They were willing to be guinea pigs on that very first show. We didn't know what we were doing. The audio was terrible. My audio was terrible. Theirs was pretty good. I was playing with different things in those days. And as we go through the years, hopefully you'll see an improvement not only in the audio but the video. You might even see an improvement in the host, but that's kind of doubtful. But John and Amy were willing to be our guinea pigs for a show. We didn't know if it'd work or wouldn't work. We tried it with them. It did work. And here's John and Amy, show number 1 of the OhioRAAM Show.
Ended up the following year, I got a little more involved. She pretty much did the first year, and I thought it was kind of crazy. Who would want to volunteer to watch these cyclists come through town? But the following year, I was up there a little more, and I got really hooked. And now I plan my vacation around RAM. So once it gets a hold of you, it gets a hold of you. I'm telling you, you get the fever. We work toward RAM 12 months out of the year now, so it really kind of takes over.
Tell us a little bit about what a time station is and what happens around it.
Well, the time station is where the riders come through and they actually have to report their time back to headquarters. So what we do is just cheer the racers on. We try to give them a little bit of the things that they don't get out on the road, like communication with other humans. For one thing, they don't always they see their partners the entire time. When they see us as someone different, someone to talk to. That's why we always try to make sure it's staffed 24 hours a day. We have tents set up. We have canopies set up. We offer coffee, cookies, water, a variety of things. We open our house up, since we spend most of our time up there, for people to do laundry, to take a nap, or just relax.
That was show number 1. Then where do we go from there? And it turned out that Johnny and Dex Took had just published their book, Unfinished Business. I was reading it. While getting a root canal, as a matter of fact. It was so exciting. It has become almost a handbook of how to do RAM, as well as a great read. And it was such a coup to the second show to get this couple, who's so well known and so respected in racing circles. Every year people are bidding for them to be crew, and they do a great job with that. And we really appreciate Johnny and Dex coming on the show and giving it the boost it needed to become known here and there among ultra race cycles. Johnny and Dex Took.
And I'm thinking, this guy can't do it. How? And you report the fact that you've gone below that, what we call the red 10, below 10 miles an hour. what happened to you that you were able to pull that thing out of the fire? Because as I read, I think there's no way he can finish this race in time.
Well, my average speed was going down, and of course, in the last 300 miles, as I entered the Appalachians, in the last 300 miles, I had about 30 hours left, and in that last 300 miles, I took one 15-minute nap, and that was it. And yet the Appalachians had slowed my average speed way down, and it got to a point that I was behind the 8-ball, and I was staring the results of 2010 right in the face again. And that was something that I didn't want, and that was something my brother Joe didn't want. And Joe started talking to me, and he started asking me questions like, Dex, what do you want to say in 3 weeks? Do you want to say you gave Ram your best shot and have people pat you on the back and say you did a great job, or you want to, and even though you didn't finish, or do you want to say that you finished Ram? He said, because right now you're writing the last chapter in Ram right now. He said, do you want to hear people say better luck next year, Dex? Is that what you want? Do you want to go back to the Lions Club and the Rotary Clubs and these people that supported you and tell them you gave it your best shot but you didn't make it? He said, right now I want you to show me, you're writing your last chapter, and right now I want you to show me how that chapter's going to end. And he just kept prodding me. And I got a second win somewhere, and also I got a little downhill. I got out of the Appalachians, and you know you got to go back down to sea level, and so I got a little downhill, and I got a lot of inspiration, and I was able to pick up and increase my miles per hour and barely pull it on through.
Well, thanks, Dex and Joni, for being on the show. Well, in that clip you didn't see Joni. She was there elsewhere, and if you search way back on the show website, OhioRAAMShow.com, you'll see the full show, as you will all these shows. They're all there. I have to always say a thank you to John Foote and Ultra Race News, because if it weren't for that, the show wouldn't be what it is. In fact, I'm not even sure there'd be a show, because it's from Ultra Race News and the work he does that I get a lot of ideas. The other thing that's happened with the show as it's developed over the years is to find out a little more about people's life other than when they're riding their bike, and that's always interesting. And John Foote was on the show, and I got him to talk about one of his other interests, and that's rescuing greyhound racing dogs after they are done racing or done breeding. Does a great job with that, and as a dog lover myself, and my other hobby is photographing dogs, we just appreciate what John does for these great animals.
We appreciate it. But you know, there's one thing else, one other thing I know about you, John, that I'd like to have you talk about, quite aside from cycling, and that is your dogs. What you've been doing with dogs.
Yeah. Well, we're involved with a greyhound rescue group out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and we've been rescuing greyhounds for, oh man, long time. Probably about 15 years ago is when I got my first one. We love the breed. It's a great cause. What we do not do, we do not allow ourselves to foster these dogs because we know we would fail at fostering. We'd end up with a whole house full. We're down to one right now. At one point we had 5 dogs in the house, but they're great dogs, and yeah, we love the breed, and we really support greyhound adoption. These are all retired greyhounds. They come from tracks in Florida, Alabama, and West Virginia, and sometimes other points throughout the United States where tracks close. We'll bring dogs in and find homes for those as well.
Great advocate of cycling, John Foote. Always good to see John, talk with him. He's a great guy. Together we heard about Maria Parker. We had her on the show before her race, and then she had her horrific accident, or not, she didn't have the accident, her follow car did. And we were able to get her on the show again afterwards so she could tell us about what happened. And of course we want to say a good word for her charity, 3,000 Miles to a Cure for brain cancer. Thanks a lot, Maria. You were been a great supporter of the show in many, many ways. Thanks, Maria.
And I was just starting to feel good again in Arizona, and really getting had worked out my nutritional issues, and the crew was starting to come together and figure out what they were supposed to be doing, because we were all rookies. And I was riding along about 6 miles outside of Tuba City, Arizona, and it was evening. The sun hadn't set yet, but it was starting to get to be evening, and we had gone into direct follow mode, meaning the van, my follow van, was allowed at that point to follow directly behind me, which prior to that it had leapfrogged me during the daylight hours. But RAM officials had encouraged or required the follow vehicles to follow, and so they were my van was following, and I was riding along and really enjoying myself. It was a beautiful evening, and I heard a loud explosion behind me, and I looked in my rearview mirror, and I saw that pieces of my backup bike all over the road, and debris, and I knew right away that the follow vehicle had been rear-ended. And it was a huge, loud explosion, so I knew that it was serious, and I had a communication device, Cardo, and I was communicating with the driver, and I said, "What happened? What happened?" And he said, "Just keep pedaling, just keep pedaling." And I knew my son was in of the three. There were 3 crew members in the vehicle, and my son was in the back in the feeder position. And I thought, why is he telling me to keep going? Because they can't. Obviously, they're not going to continue. But then I thought, oh no, maybe he's telling me to continue driving because my son was hurt. That's the thought that came to my mind, and so of course I didn't keep going. And you're not allowed to make U-turns in RAM, so I was sort of confused. What do I do? So I stopped the bike, and we got back to the van, and just left the bike on that side of the road and went back to the van, and it was just a nightmarish scene. There was the back of the van was completely destroyed. The 2 true bikes that had been on the back were just gone, and just a little. But when we got to the place where we had the accident, I said, you know what? If we're going to do this thing, I want to do every mile. So drop me off here. Let's continue. And Jim, my husband, and our new crew chief said, well, if we're going to do that, we may as well call RAM and see if they'll let us back in the race. I said, they're not going to let us back in the race. You can't un-DNF. They said, well, we'll just call and find out. And the RAM officials were gracious enough to let us back in the race. And they even said, we know you're not going to make it to the first time cutoff in Durango, but if you should be getting closer to it by the Mississippi River, and the Annapolis is a hard cutoff. So we said, okay, we'll just go.
Well, Maria not only finished the race, she won her division and actually came in first among all the women in the race, which leads us to another issue that the OhioRAAM Show has taken on as a cause célèbre, if you will, and that is the encouragement of women in ultracycling and eventually into the race across America. And there's several reasons for that. First of all, I think the women add an awful lot to the race. Secondly, quite frankly, women are more willing and quickly to come on the show. I don't know why that is, but I've just found that to be the case. So we were able to put together an all-woman show, which turned out to be quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you even just remove the endurance component of it and just look at competitive cycling in general, I think there's a barrier for women just because there's that, like, I don't know if I'm good enough feeling to compete, because the men take it so seriously as a general rule, I would say, that they think that they'll just embarrass themselves. But like Sarah said, once they kind of like dip their toes in the water, it's usually like a full submersion is right around the bend, right? Because you just kind of get addicted to it. And I agree with what Patty said. I think using teams to really usher people into the sport in general, even, and then into endurance cycling, is a great idea. But I think in general, just the fear of the competition itself is a barrier for women. Now, and with respect to bicycling, I agree with Sarah. There's like the financial burden of getting into cycling. But as for myself, I didn't even realize people bicycled beyond, 6th grade until I was like 22 years old or something, and I kind of saw some people doing some triathlon, and I'm like, wait a minute, people are still biking. I didn't know this. And, there are very few young girls coming through the system competing at an early age. My cousin Angelina is one of those rising stars who learned about competitive cycling when she was, like 10. And I had no idea until I was in my, early to mid-20s that was even something that people did. And so, trying to build awareness and open invitations into events and into the sport earlier on will definitely usher in like a new era of, competitive cycling women, I think.
Okay, thanks, Ryan, and that was a great show. Now, I said I was going to tell you how the show came about. The name OhioRAAM came about when we were trying to have an overarching organization to get the 2 time stations here in Ohio, time stations 41 and 42, Oxford and Blanchester, going. The organization has done what a lot of organizations probably ought to. It's kind of gone into mothballs because these 2 time stations now support themselves. They don't need any oversight of any kind. The McFaddens do a great job there. Jim Lawyer and the Golden Tries there in Oxford, they do a great job as well. We appreciate what they do. But it's probably time to turn our attention to Oxford and talk about the guy who most people don't know about, but they know what he does, and that's Mike Minium, the sign guy, the guy who puts all these signs up along the way. Tonight we have with us the sign man at long last. We get Mike Minium on the show. How are you doing tonight, Mike?
Well, very well. Thank you very much.
And every time we have somebody on the show who's done a race across America, they always say, that's the place with the signs. So show us one of your signs there, Mike.
Okay.
Tell us about it.
Well, we started about 5 years ago when they first started putting the route through Oxford. We had a lot of concerns about the safety of part of the route because of Highway 73 is quite busy, lots of commuter traffic, and we wanted to do something to alert motorists to the bicycles, to let them know that there were going to be bicyclists slow moving going up the hills out there, and to try and be a little more careful. And we expanded that a little bit into the more rural portions of the route. We found that there were areas with lots of turns, winding country roads, where it also helped out the riders and their crew, gave them a little feeling of security, knowing that they were seeing the signs, they're still on the route in those twisty, windy back roads.
And about how many signs do you have out?
This year we have just about 200 signs over about 160 miles of the route from the Greensburg, Indiana time station through Oxford, Blanchester, and up to the Chillicothe time station.
Well, Mike does a really great job, and we ought to support him. When you come by the time stations, often he has some signs there for sale. It gives you a little souvenir to take home, put up in your room, but it also helps to buy a couple signs. He does that out of his own pocket, and we really appreciate Mike and everything he does. He travels a lot, so it's hard for him to get it done, and I would hope that maybe some other people around there would jump in and help him a little bit, but thank you so much, Mike. And now let's chat a little bit with Jim Lawyer, who started out over at Blanchester but moved over to Oxford to pick up that organization there. He does a great job there, and it's always good to talk with Jim a little bit.
Basically, I started riding because I have cerebral palsy on my right side, and was told that it would probably help strengthen my right side, and it has. I got hooked up with a very good bike mechanic who has helped me fit and do things on my bike to help balance my power, my missed power, I guess if you want to call it that. And when I first started riding, I was 80% on my left side, 20 on my right. Now I'm about 51-49.
Okay.
So.
And I believe, if I'm not right, you have different size crank arms.
That is correct. I've got 175 on the left and 165 on the right.
And you know, I've known you for a number of years, but that's the first time I knew that what the reason for your...
Right, yeah. I mean, used to wear a brace and everything, but kind of have worked out of that, and cycling's helped me do that.
So how did you get recruited into working in RAM?
Well, that same friend who does my bikes had a friend who was involved, Doug.
Doug Phillips?
Yeah, Doug Phillips over in Blanchester. And he said, come on out and help us. So I got hooked in over there and then just kind of flowered into it and left Blanchester to come over here and help with Oxford. And like Oxford so much, we just stayed here.
But you kind of had the whole thing dumped in your lap by me.
I wouldn't say dumped. I mean, I think we worked well together, and we still work well together. The fact that you're here tonight doing this, but I don't think dumped is the right word. I think it's a challenge, and it's fun, and I like being here helping. So.
Well, and Jim's our technical guru. He has all these interesting computer setups here, and creates hotspots for us and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's greatly appreciated. And I think all these tents or the awnings or whatever you call them belong to you, don't they?
Yep.
And I know that Jim Lawyer pours a lot of his own resources into this, and a lot of people do. But it's deeply appreciated, and you got to be the busiest person I know.
What's really fun about this show is getting out to see some people face to face while the races are going on and some other kinds of events. And that's a great joy to see people, talk to them. And last year on one of the shows, I think it's show number 53, I had just so many people that you would know if I would name them, but I got this little clip of Cassie Schumacher, Shauna Hogan, and the inimitable Danny Chu.
8 different RAM victories right here, Lee. Get the photo between these 3 people. 8 different victories.
I'm doing that. I'm doing some video here. And I was going to say...
8 total victories.
Danny,
yes.
Glad to see you get in here. And there's been a lot of talk about royalty on this, on this race. This is RAM royalty I'm looking at right now.
The real deal.
How many victories? Yeah, the real deal.
There you are.
1, 6, and 1, 5, and 2.
6.
Oh,
wait.
Yeah, 1, 6, and 2.
Come on.
9.
No, it's 1, 6, and 1.
So, just so we know, we got Cassie Schumacher, Shauna Hogan, and Danny
at the Blanchester Time Station.
And as I said, the show has been expanding beyond just Race Across America and even beyond ultra cycling. I've had an interest in Major Taylor, the great Afro-American athlete who, at the turn of the century, 1899 and 1903, was a major athlete, a major figure in sports. And I have had the privilege of having the San Diego Major Taylor Cycling Club on, as well as some friends of mine who I reconnected with when I was doing a show at a bike shop in Columbus called Bikes for All People, which is another interesting show in and of itself. As I was telling you ahead of time, I rode with your club on the very first tour of the Scioto River Valley you ever did.
Oh, wow. That was back in 79.
1979, and as I was telling you, ride with you with maybe a little bit of exaggeration. The team had a nice pace line. They passed me. I grabbed onto the back. And after a couple of miles, I said, that's enough of that.
I suppose we were renowned for our pace line, so to speak, because they used to get quite extensive in length, too.
They were, and it was kind of like a military operation.
Well, we tried to operate somewhat with some kind of order.
Now, I've had Major Taylor, the San Diego Club, on the show as we were talking about a book that was written about Major Taylor in Australia. But let's just talk a little bit about who was Major Taylor and why we have that name for your club.
Well, we chose him as our name moniker because he was the first black world champion in cycling. I think the second black world champion in any sport. There was a boxer, and I can't think of his name, that preceded him. Major was born in 1878 and was world champion 1901, maybe through 03. In the sprint and the mile was his expertise.
Right, and back here on the table we have a book about Major Taylor, and in the show I did with the San Diego Club, we were to have the gentleman from Australia on who had written a book about his riding in Australia. Something happened that he couldn't get on the air. But what I'm going to do on the show notes for the show, right below where you're looking here, down here somewhere, I'll put links to those books, so if people would like to learn more about Major Taylor.
Yes.
But what can you tell me about his exploits?
Well, generally speaking, in the turn of the century America, blacks weren't allowed to participate in cycling, but for a few locations. I think excluded entirely in the South. I think he moved from Indianapolis to Worcester, Massachusetts, just so he could race. His religious conviction was such that he would never race on Sunday, and I think they estimated over his racing career that he may have lost $3 to $4 million by just not racing on Sunday, which in turn of the century dollars is a tremendous amount of money. Overall, just a grand person in terms of character, believed in wholesome living, non-cheating, support of the wife and family. Very inspirational guy, and I think well chosen for all the clubs across America now that are chosen his name to represent.
He was quite a star in Europe.
Yes, very much so. I think for the most part he gained most of his acclaim in Europe and Australia racing. Again, the European public he felt were more tolerant of his race being a black man than in here in America. And he didn't have to subject himself or his family to, I guess, racial issues.
And it's a diversified club, is it not?
Yes, racially diversified in terms of age as well. I'm the senior citizen, the oldest member in the club, let's say, and I'm 70, and I think our youngest member, well, we have some of our members' children are now participating, so I don't know if I want to go that deep. But, yeah, a lot of different professions involved, and I'm retired. I think a third of us maybe at this point. But very diversified.
And you have a national organization, do you not?
Well, not we, but there is a national umbrella that kind of represents all the major clubs in the country, yes.
Okay, well, we want to thank you for your time here. I was hoping that you'd bring one of your really nice jerseys, and I have this photograph, only I think it's mirror image of it, and it'll be on the show. People can see it. It'll probably be up in front of it right now. We'll let you see what Major Taylor, he was fit, was he not?
Very much so. Some of the photos I've seen of his physique are astounding, just to say what he was doing riding a bicycle.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it, that the bikes that we see in the Tour de France or other races today aren't a lot different from that bike right there.
Not at all. I think the materials that they use today and then some of the aerodynamic approaches are, but you still got three wheels back, actually, two on the ground and one that you turn.
That's right, and it seemed like a design that seemed to work. They tinker with it, improve it. But, he also designed a special set of handlebars.
Yes, I think, what actually was the stem that was, you could adjust the stem fore and aft for different positions on the bike. Yes. That was
his invention. And well, thank you again for being with us here.
Oh, my pleasure.
We appreciate your time. And
anytime.
Like I said, down below here, you'll see in the show notes.
Our website, we have a website that's...
Yeah, I'll put your website on there, and I'll put some links to these books about Major Taylor. Well, I said at the beginning of this show that we've made improvements over the last 3 years. In fact, during this show, I've even improved the lighting a little bit. Do you notice? Well, Fred Bothling, who is the CEO of the Race Across America, advises cyclists on how to finish the race, how to win the race. And his advice includes the saying, keep on the bike and keep moving forward. Well, that's not only a good piece of advice for cycling, but it's a good piece of advice for life. And no one exemplifies this better than Stephen Berbeling of Sydney, Australia, who has been on this show many times and is a great supporter of the show. Stephen, his goal has to be the very first HIV positive rider to complete the Race Across America. As a soloist, he has been on 3, I believe, teams. He's had one difficulty after another with accidents, not his fault. And this year he was bounced off the road by a truck, broke the ball off of his femur in Perth, Australia, had that reattached with titanium. There, flew across the country to his home in Sydney and had titanium put in his clavicle, his shoulder hair. And during one of the shows, he popped in from his hospital bed, fresh out of surgery, to give his determination that he's going to go on and achieve that goal. Like the old Timex ad used to say, he takes a licking and keeps on ticking. Stephen Berbeling, Sydney, Australia. Visiting with them. But first, I just want to take a moment to slide over to Australia and talk to Stephen Berbeling for a minute. We are very interested in Stephen's well-being. He's in hospital. Stephen, how's it going there?
G'day, and I'm very, very glad and I'm very honored to be here. But you can imagine also that physically I'm very, very glad to be here and to actually be able to talk and say g'day. For those who don't know, I had a crash on Wednesday, October the 8th, when in Western Australia doing a 1,200 kilometre ride. I was run off the road by a truck or a road train. I don't know, I can't remember any of that. And as a result of that, I've had the femur ball joint reattached with a metal pin, and I've yesterday had this broken collarbone attached with titanium, and so forth. So it's been a bit of a harrowing experience because part of it was done on one side of the country and the other side, and the other part was done here in Sydney, Australia. Having said that, you can imagine that spending a week and a half in hospital has given me a lot of time for introspection, and it made me confirm within my mind that I'm determined to come and join again and be at Oceanside at some stage. I've been overwhelmed by the support that I've had, which has been terrific, and I thank you all. Some of the people that come to mind are obviously my coach, Marco Barlow, and also Chris Hopkinson from England, who has had similar fractured setbacks and manages to race across America quite easily despite all that metal in his bone. So I'm hoping to do the same again. And I'm very, very grateful for all the support that I get constantly. So thank you.
Well, I'm glad that you could be here to say hello to us. I didn't want to distract from Love, Sweat, and Gears, but I know everybody is just happy to see you smiling there. And and your determination amazes us all, Stephen. And you get well. We want to see you back here on the road in Ohio one of these days, and maybe that rainy day we met there at Blanchester, Ohio, when you were struggling with your rain suit. Yes. And we'll maybe we'll give you enough rain next time to really put it to use.
I would look forward to that. And in the meantime, I let you have a wonderful conversation with the ladies from Love, Sweat and Gears, whom I look forward to meeting up with once more in Oceanside in June. And I thank you for the time. Enjoy, guys. I'm leaving you guys, and I look forward to catching up at some stage, and I look forward to hearing
you take your if my wife were here, she'd say take your pain pills before it starts to hurt. And
here they are. They've given it to me already.
Okay. All right.
You guys enjoy.
Okay.
All the best,
good, Stephen, and best of luck.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Well, that's our 3rd anniversary show. There are so many clips I could put in there. That was really great. But I had to pick a few, which gives a sample of the shows. And we want to say how much we appreciate all the great support we get from all of you. It means a lot. As I've said again and again, it helps the show become known, but more important, it helps the world of cycling, ultracycling, Race Across America, and all the other great races become better known. Now, over this past year that we've been on the show, there has been some changes. We were doing the show live, and there were problems associated with that, so I guess what we say now, it is recorded live. But the recording has solved a lot of problems for both the guests and for me, the host, and that's been a good thing. What's coming up in the future? Well, I already have shows recorded up into almost October. The show will have a hiatus after the Race Across America is over. But we're looking for new talent, and if you have ideas about what you'd like to see on the show, somebody you think would be a good person to have on the show, please let me know. There are several of you out there who have been doing that, and I really appreciate that, and as a result I've had some pretty good shows from what you have suggested. So when you share on Facebook, give a like, give a comment. On Google Plus, do the same thing with a plus or a share. Retweet it on Twitter. Those are the only 3 social networks that I am on. You can help the show and help the whole cause of ultracycling. Also on the show website, OhioRAAMShow.com, you will see a place where you can add your email address if you'd like to get show notices. On the OhioRAAM Show page on Facebook is a good place to get your notices. And there's also a place there that you can leave your comments. All the shows that we have done over the last 3 years are on that website in the archive. You can see them at your leisure. There are some great shows there, some recent ones that I thought were very good. Again, not because anything that the host has done, but because of the great people we've had on the show. I just came back a few days ago from Calvin's Challenge. I had some people on there. We'll be having that show later, September sometime. I've got it scheduled already. You can see that if you look on the website under future shows. You'll see the schedules coming up. So we'll have a great hiatus in July and most of August while I do a little bit of traveling and some other things, and then we'll be back at it in the fall with some other great shows. So thank you again for your support. Thank you for watching this show. We appreciate it a great deal. And for some of you, I'm going to say good morning. For others, it is good evening. And for some, it's good night.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.